Welcome to I'll Eat Your History. Stay tuned and see how this goes to make no-knead bread with some leftover whey. Now, today isn't a historical recipe. This is kind of a little bit of a meat sandwich or a bread sandwich in between two different historical recipes. So there isn't going to be a reaction video to this. This is simply a recipe I found off of the internet, and it was a no-knead bread recipe. So my last video is a cheese making video. I made medieval cheese. And from that, I had whey. Now the next video I'm gonna do is about a medieval cheesecake, and I'm gonna use the cheese for the cheesecake. This is all courtesy of Tasting History. And I was left with leftover whey. And the medieval cheesecake recipe calls for breadcrumbs. So I thought, well, why don't I make bread from the leftover whey? So this is sort of the little segue in between those two recipes. I've looked for one that was specifically talked about using whey because I've never done that before with bread. And this is the one that came forth. I bet I could do it with probably any bread recipe, but I was particularly intrigued by this very simple way of making bread. I've tried a few times to make bread recently. I don't think Paul Hollywood would be very impressed with what I made, but my dad was, and I thought it was delicious. It's not gonna win me the pie tin or whatever you get on the Great British Bake Off, but it did the trick. But this recipe is so simple. It's just basically stirring, leaving it alone for a while, bringing it back out, putting it in a ball, baking it in the oven. We're gonna see what happens. I have 1 teaspoon of yeast, 2 teaspoons of salt. Here is where I use my whey for my leftover cheese making. Well, it should be 1.5 cups, so it looks like I'm gonna need to empty a little bit out of that. And also for bread, I'm using this to replace the water. I've never done this before. We'll see how it goes. It does need to be room temperature in order to be able to activate the yeast. Okay, that looks better. And finally, 3 cups of flour. This is 2. I'll go ahead and put in 1 more cup. So, okay, I'm gonna plop a little bit more on there. Boom, boom, boom. And then I'm gonna do this. Why? I don't know, because everybody that I ever watched does it this way. So we're gonna just do that to level it off and have our nice 1 cup. And I'm just gonna top it in there. Boop, 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 boop. So there we go. That is 3 cups of flour. Okay, well, let's start making some bread. I tried my best to get the whey to room temperature. It's cold. It's cold today. And it is a cold whey. It's way cold. It's cold whey, so I'm not really sure how much is going to activate the yeast. So we're going to see how this bread comes out, because you want to make sure this is room temperature in order for it to activate the yeast. That's all I know about that. I don't know the technical things about bread making, but I do know temperature is really actually important to make all of the magical bready chemistry things happen. So I don't know how this is going to turn out, but we'll find out. Okay, so first we're going to combine our dry ingredients. So we're going to put in our flour. That's, of course, the critical part of the bread. We will also put in the 2 teaspoons of salt. Go ahead and put those in. There, done, done, done. And then the 1 teaspoon of yeast. Put that in there as well. So, well, some of that got stuck there, but that's just what's gonna happen. Taking my little wooden spoon, so it's very official, and then just stirring the ingredients, the dry ingredients. Now, the reason why you wanna stir the dry ingredients together first before you add the wet is so that they disperse evenly throughout. If you put in the wet, then the wet will, if it's water or milk or whatever it is, it will bind to the dry ingredient so that it doesn't really mix in very well. So that's all we're doing. We're just wanting to mix it in well. Okay, I think that is fine. Okay, now let's go ahead and add in our liquid. Now, per the instructions from this recipe, which I got from don'twastethecrumbs.com, this is going to be a little bit different than your traditional bread. It's going to be shaggy, and that is not a Scooby-Doo reference. But shaggy is, from what I've learned in my brief foray into bread making, sort of a look of the bread dough where it looks, well, shaggy. I don't really know a better word. So it's not going to come together as well as like a traditional bread dough that you need. But look, it is coming together. Like not taking too long. It's being stubborn. I'm fighting with it, but we're gonna win. It's really hard for me actually to not just put my hands in there and start making it happen. Okay, but I feel pretty good about that. Actually, I think this is gonna be pretty good. So you can kind of see it's got some, it's talking to me. It's trying to take my spoon away, but you can see it's got a little bit, that's kind of what we're talking about when we say shaggy. We, the royal we, like I'm some sort of a bread expert. I am not. I'm not under any illusions that I'm an amazing bread person. But I've read a recipe. That's what I am taking from what shaggy is, meaning it is not smooth. It's not a smooth dough. It's not like all pretty and tight. Shaggy. Now our shaggy little dough is tired and it wants to rest. We're gonna put a towel over it. We're gonna just let it hang out for 8 hours to overnight per the recipe. I'm gonna go ahead and do it overnight because 8 hours is gonna be like in the middle of the night and I'm not gonna get up in the middle of the night to play with bread. So we're gonna come back to this tomorrow and see how it has turned out. Now hopefully it's risen. The last couple of times I played with my bread making, the rising part didn't really go well. I feel like it's like a bread's like a magical language that I have only learned how to say hello in and thank you. I don't know the language yet. So I don't know what's gonna happen here, but you're gonna find out in like a couple of seconds. One more little note, because I tried a little taste of it. I know you're not supposed to eat raw dough, but I did. It is salty. It is very salty because the whey was salted and then I added salt. So don't do that. If you're going to try this at home and you're using salted whey, remember, you don't need to add salt because it's already in your whey. Well, we're going to see how this goes. I think when I eat this bread, I'm probably going to blow up like a balloon retaining so much water from the salt that it's in, but it will be flavorful. It won't be bland. Okay, now let's go ahead and find out what happened to the dough. Okay, and we are back. It's been a day. It has been a day, but we won't talk about that. Yeah, so we're here to check on the bread and see how it's doing after resting for probably about 24 hours. All right. Okay, so it came up. Ooh, look, it's bouncy. It's bouncy. It might be overproofed because it's not bouncing back. Very likely. But you know what? We're going to roll with it because it's salty AF anyway. And this is what we have. Okay, so the next step is that we are going to form it into a ball and then let it rest again. So the next step is to flour the surface. Again, realizing this is not perfect bread, but that's okay. I'm not here to be perfect. I'm gonna put some flour on the table. This helps so that it doesn't stick. And I'm gonna flour my hands as well. I'm gonna do this. We don't want it to have too much flour, I think, because otherwise it'll get a little too dry and then we'd have to add water and then it gets too wet and then it's like a whole dance that we go through that every time I've tried, I haven't been able to win. Okay, so I'm gonna take this, try not to use that wonky thumb. Yeah, I don't know how this is. Like I said, I I am not a professional. So there you go. All right. Kind of has a smell to it, I think, because of the whey. Put that in the sink. Put that in the sink. Okay, and now we're gonna try to like make it into a ball. This is what I saw in the videos that when I was trying to learn how to do bread making unsuccessfully, but it's like this thing that you do. I'm gonna powder my hands up a little bit more, and you like scoop it in like that. Ooh. Okay. I I don't think it's very good. But you know what? It's gonna work. That's what I'm gonna do. It will be bread. It might not be something I'm gonna share with anybody, but it'll be bread. So now we're gonna let it rest for 1 hour. I'm gonna cover it with the towel again. And about 30 minutes through, I'm gonna turn on the oven to preheat it. And then we'll come back and we'll pop it in the oven and see what little hot mess I've made. We have let our little wild bread rest. It needed a moment to rest because it's a hot mess. We know that. So let's see how it's doing. Okay. And meanwhile, I had preheated the oven, and also it had asked to put the Dutch oven or the pot that we're going to be baking in the oven to preheat as well. So it's warm. So I'm going to go ahead and get that out. I've also got this piece of parchment paper that I'll put in the pot so that this is easy to get out. Okay, now, so I'm going to be careful here because this is a hot pan. I just got it out of the oven. Carefully putting the parchment. I already have an owie. I don't need to burn as well. Okay. Oh! Just as I say that, I literally touch the edge of my arm to the pot. Great. Okay, well, hopefully the rest of this goes better. I'm going to take my dough, my sad little dough story, and carefully plop it in there. I don't know if I should score it. It didn't say anything about scoring it, so I'm not going to. I mean, this is already a disaster, so we're just going to plop it in the oven. We're going to plop it in the oven, and then we'll see what happens next. Okay, putting in the oven with the lid. I forgot to mention that. So the lid didn't get preheated, but it will be in there, I assume, to help with steam capture. I have no idea, but anyway, he's in there. Have fun. Have a fun little bake. Bye-bye. Okay, now we're going to take it out and take off the lid and let it cook for another 15 minutes. Woo. See how it's doing in there? So now we want it to get a nice golden brown. It smells like bread. Definitely has a unique smell too because of the whey, I think. But we're gonna see how this turns out. 15 more minutes. Okay, and now we take it out. Ooh. Okay, we got to the end. The bread has baked. It has cooled. It's still a little warm. It smells good. It smells a little yogurty too. I think that's probably because of the whey. So we're going to cut into it and see what magic unfolds. It's got a good crunch, good crust. Well, it's baked, so that's a win. Feels a little spongy. I don't know. Are you a bread expert? Is this too tight? Probably. I don't know, but it looks fine to me as just a regular old person. I'd put this in my mouth, and I'm about to. Okay, now here's the big test. See if it's too salty. I'm a little worried about it. Smells pretty good. It smells like bread. It's good. It's got a little bit of a tangy flavor. because of the way it almost kind of tastes like sourdough. Definitely, I can taste the salt, but it isn't too much, which is good. If you like a saltier bread, this is fine. Maybe a little bit kind of focaccia-y without the stuff in it. But yeah, I mean, this is decent. I would make this again. Hopefully, I would make it better. Yeah, maybe I should try some of the cheese I made in the last episode. And if you want to watch that, I'll link that episode at the end so that you can see the cheese that I cooked up. Okay, here is the cheese that I made, the farmer's cheese, whatever it is, this medieval cheese. And we'll see how this goes. Mm. Mm. It's like I've reunited the whey that came out of the cheese. It's okay. It's fine. On to what is next, which is cooking a medieval cheesecake with said cheese, and I will also make some breadcrumbs. I'm not going to film that. It's breadcrumbs. But go ahead and check out that episode as well. I'll link both of them at the end. So, which one do you want to watch? What do you want to watch? Cheese or cheesecake? It's up to you. Subscribe if you want to see what other weirdness, craziness I get up to. I don't even know. Okay, I'll talk to you later, or I won't. I don't know. Bye. Thanks for watching.